All right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, my YouTube family. Good afternoon, Clubhouse. I see you over there, Samantha and Tyler. Welcome to the room. Welcome to the 5 o'clock hour. I come to you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 5 p.m. to 5:30 right here on YouTube. I come to you 5:30 until the top of the hour, right over in the clubhouse space. But I am Tamara Johnson Sheely. If you are following me right here on YouTube, hit that like button, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, hit the notifications, and share, share, share. Whew. Thursday, y'all. You know, Thursdays are my Fridays. It has been a long week, but a good week. We are busy on the campaign trail to the United States Senate, y'all. It's been very, very productive this week. We are not playing. We have a race to win. And I always remind you the reason why we do Keeping Up with Congress Monday through Thursday is because we will not, and I repeat, we will not get reparations without negotiation. So I am committed to bringing you the 411 in Congress, what's going on in the United States Senate, what's going on in the United States House of Representatives. We have to keep our eyes on Congress, y'all. We have to keep our eyes on Congress. These bills that are being introduced, we don't know. We don't know who these people are. We don't know what they're doing. And why is my neighbors cutting the grass in the middle of our broadcast? So why would they wait? Like they know, right? It's all good. It's all good. I hope you guys can hear me. They are cutting the grass right next to my window. But you know, at the top of the hour, I like to bring you some reparations information. What's going on in reparations news? I found this book. I was on a conference call, a Zoom call earlier today, and it is this book. I had not heard of it, and I thought, hell, I'm gonna tell you, I really thought I was up on all the books, but I'm not. This one I hadn't heard of. It's called Reparations: A Christian Call for Repentance and Repair by Duke L. Quan and Gregory Thompson. I had never heard of this book. It was a suggested reading in a Zoom call that I was on this morning. So if you have not heard of it, y'all, I think it's definitely worth the read. I'm more than likely at some point going to um, get it on audio so that I can definitely listen to it. But here's a part, and I think you may have all of you may have heard of this. A letter that was written by a slave to his slave owner, and the slave owner was asking him to come back. He was asking him to come back and be a slave, more or less. But this is actually they read the letter outside in the book, and I wanted to play it for you um, so that you could hear it if you've never heard of this letter. So I'll let you listen.
They go to Sunday school, and Andy and me attend church regularly. We are kindly treated. Sometimes we overhear others saying, them colored people were slaves down in Tennessee. The children feel hurt when they hear such remarks, but I tell them it was no disgrace in Tennessee to belong to Colonel Anderson. Many darkies would have been proud, as I used to be, to call you master. Now, if you will write and say what wages you will give me, I will better be able to decide whether it would be to my advantage to move back again. As to my freedom, which you say I can have, there is nothing to be gained on that score, as I got my free papers in 1864 from the Provost Marshal General of the Department of Nashville. Mandy says she would be afraid to go back without some proof that you were disposed to treat us justly and kindly. And we have concluded to test your sincerity by asking you to send us our wages for the time we served you. This will make us forget and forgive old scores and rely on your justice and friendship in the future. I served you faithfully for 32 years, and Mandy, 20 years, at $25 a month for me, and $2 a week for Mandy. Our earnings would amount to $11,680. Add to this the interest for the time our wages have been kept back, and deduct what you paid for our clothing and 3 doctor's visits to me, and pulling a tooth from Andy, and the balance will show that we are in justice entitled to. Please send the money by Adams Express, in care of V. Winters, Esquire, Dayton, Ohio. If you fail to pay us for faithful labors in the past, we can have little faith in your promises in the future. We trust the good Maker has opened your eyes to the wrongs which you and your fathers have done to me and my fathers in making us toil for you for generations without recompense. Here I draw my wages every Saturday night. But in Tennessee, there was never any payday for the Negroes, any more than for the horses and cows. Surely there will be a day of reckoning for those who defraud the laborer of his hire. In answering this letter, please state if there would be any safety for my Millie and Jane, who are now grown up and both good-looking girls. You know how it was with poor Matilda and Catherine. I would rather stay here and starve and die, if it come to that, than have my girls brought to shame by the violence and wickedness of their young masters. You will also please state if there has been any schools open for the colored children in your neighborhood. The great desire of my life now is to give my children an education and have them form virtuous habits. Say howdy to George Carter and thank him for taking the pistol from you when you were shooting at me. From your old servant, Jordan Anderson. Thanks to the efforts of abolitionist Valentine Winters, Jordan Anderson's letter was reprinted in the Cincinnati Commercial, the New York Daily Tribune, and Lydia Maria Child's The Freedmen's Book, and became something of a national sensation. Rightly so. It is at once satirical and serious, compassionate and candid, vulnerable and shrewd.
So that was a book called Reparations. If you have not, like I said, I thought I was up on all the, or at least knew about most of the readings around reparations, but this was a book that was recommended this morning in a Zoom called Reparations. Again, a Christian call for repentance and repair by Duke L. Kwan and Gregory Thompson. I definitely will be diving into it. I want to hear from a Christian perspective how reparations is actually explained. For those of you that are following, you know, I'm a part of an initiative called Reparations Sunday, where we are reaching out to churches in hopes that they will walk alongside us. During the civil rights movement, they were right there. So we're hopeful that we will get more churches involved with us in this fight for reparations. So check the book out. I thought it was, I'm like, I hadn't heard of this book. So check this book out, y'all. So let's dive into the bills. Let's dive into the House bills. Again, I do apologize. My neighbors cutting their grass in the middle of our broadcast, but I hope you can hear me and hear me well. So we'll dive into the bills. Clubhouse family, I will come over and open up the room at the half hour. So we got about 20 more minutes and I will be right over and we're going to open up the room for Q&A. We can talk and chop it up. So I'll be right over with you in just at the half hour. So let's dive into the House bills. HR 1011, HR 1011. This is Life at Conception Act. I told you there's a lot of bills we see in the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate. We see a lot of abortion bills. We see veterans. We see immigration. We see national security. We see a lot of gun legislation and streamlining of processes in Congress. So here's an abortion bill, y'all. I've just heard about, I've been so focused on the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate that I haven't been paying attention across the nation to specific legislation in our states. But I did hear this morning about Texas. So maybe we can talk about that as well today when I come over to the clubhouse space. Texas, this new abortion law, and how this affects Roe versus Wade, y'all. I definitely want to hear more from those of you in the clubhouse space. I see you, YouTube family. But HR 1011, Representative Mooney, Alexander Mooney, he's a Republican out of West Virginia. It says Life at Conception Act. It says this bill declares that the right to life guaranteed by the Constitution is vetted in each human being at all stages of life, including the moment of fertilization, cloning, or other moment at which an individual comes into being. So this is HR 1011, Representative Alexander Mooney, Republican out of West Virginia. HR 1012, I found this one to be quite interesting. HR 1012 is the 6888 Congressional Gold Medal Act of 2021. We've seen this over in the Senate. We actually, for those of you who've been keeping up with Congress along with me, we've seen this legislation. But just to bring you up to speed, it says this bill, this is Representative Moore, Gwen Moore, Democrat, Wisconsin. It says this bill directs the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the President pro tem of the Senate to arrange for the award of a Congressional Gold Medal in honor of the women of the 6888 Central Post Directory Battalion. This is commonly known as the 6888, in recognition of their pioneering military service, devotion to duty, and contributions to increase the morale of personnel stationed in the European theater of operations during World War II. Yeah, I found this story to be quite interesting. I actually looked it up. Like I said, we've heard of it. For those of you who are following me right here on Keeping Up with Congress, lots of great pictures. But the 6,888 battalion, y'all. This battalion is the first female battalion that stood up to a white male army. It says this unit was set up to determine the value Black women brought to the military. They ultimately ran the fastest male service in the European theater during World War II. So they have an amazing story. I have some of it highlighted here. It says, as the newly created 6888 Central Postal Directory Battalion, their mission was neither glamorous nor particularly thrilling. It says the work would be grueling, the hours long, and what little sleep they were allotted would be prone to interruption by air raids. It goes on to say progress would be measured by the depletion of undelivered mail that had been summoned to England to sort out. It says with the war now at its bloody peak, mail was indispensable for morale, but delivering it had become a towering logistical challenge. It says the backlog piled haphazardly and cavernous hangars amounted to more than 17 million letters and packages addressed to Allied military personnel scattered across Europe. So these Black women, y'all, came in like a force to be reckoned with and made sure that the mail that needed to be delivered was delivered during World War II, before women were even allowed into the military, and Black women at that. And there was one part in here I found quite peculiar. So here's where, I think there was an underlying reason why, Black women were needed in the armed forces. So it says Eisenhower was less progressive when it came to gender. It says, however, at the same news conference, he announced a plan to send Black members of the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps to England to perform duties such as car driving and secretarial work, and also to provide companionship. Here it is, y'all, to provide companionship for the thousands of Negro troops deployed there. So I believe, and as you read further into this New York Times piece, it was quite clear that they wanted to bring the Black women over there for the Black men, because I'm sure that they didn't want interracial anything during that time. So they were intentional about getting those Black women over to England to help those Black men that were in service not to commingle in and the interracial dating or whatever was going on during that period. They were not wanting to see that happen. So it's a quite interesting piece. So again, this is HR 1012, the 6888 Congressional Gold Medal Act of 2021. HR 1013 is Protect Our Military Families Second Amendment's Right Act. This is Representative Murphy, Gregory Murphy, Republican out of North Carolina. It says this bill broadens the scope of allowable firearms transaction involving active duty service members and their spouses. I found this one interesting too. It says specifically the bill allows a licensed gun dealer, importer, or manufacturer to sell or ship a firearm or ammunition to the spouse of a member of the armed forces on active duty outside the United States. It says current law already allows a licensed dealer, importer, or manufacturer to sell or ship a firearm or ammunition to a member of the armed forces on active duty outside the United States. So this bill will give the spouses who are outside of the United States the ability to get firearms as well. Interesting. Representative Murphy, Gregory Murphy, Republican out of North Carolina. HR 1014. HR 1014 is the Veterans National Traumatic Brain Injury Treatment Act of the Veterans National Traumatic Brain Injury Treatment Act. Y'all, they're killing me with this yard next door. You hear it? Representative Murphy, again, Representative Murphy, Republican out of North Carolina, says this bill requires the Department of Veteran Affairs to implement a 5-year pilot program to furnish, under the Veterans Community Care Program, hyperbaric oxygen therapy to veterans with traumatic brain injuries or post-traumatic stress disorder. So again, this is HR 1014, the Veterans National Traumatic Brain Injury Treatment Act. HR 1015. HR 1015 is the Water Recycling Investment and Improvement Act. I told you there's 4 areas that we're going to have to get it right in Congress. I don't think there's no room to negotiate when it comes to food, air, water, and land. We have to get it right on this in these Americas. You know, there's those 4 areas. We don't need to go in there trying to negotiate. We just got to get it right in Congress, period. And we need to be all on the same page when it comes to food, air, water, and land. So again, this is HR 1015. This is Water Recycling Investment and Improvement Act. Representative Napolitano Grace, Democrat out of California. It says this bill makes permanent and otherwise revises the Bureau of Reclamation's grant program for the funding of water recycling and reuse projects. So I looked this Bureau of Reclamation. I've never heard of it, so I just wanted to look it up so we would know what it is. I told you, in order for us to get reparations, we're gonna have to do some negotiations, some negotiating. We're gonna have to negotiate. So let's be mindful that we need to know a little bit about everything, at least have, not be totally clueless, right? So established in 1902, the Bureau of Reclamation is best known for the dams, power plants, and canals it constructed in the 17 Western states. It says these water projects led to homesteading and prompted the economic development of the West. Reclamation has constructed more than 600 dams and reservoirs, including the Hoover Dam on the Colorado River and the Grand Coulee on the Columbia River. It says today we are the largest wholesaler of water in the country. It says we bring water to more than 31 million people and provide 1 out of 5 Western farmers with irrigation water for 10 million acres of farmland that produce 60% of the nation's vegetables and 25% of its fruits and nuts. So it is something, a bureau that we need to know something about. It's the second largest producer of hydroelectric power in the United States. It says our 53 power plants annually provide more than 40 billion kilowatt hours, generating nearly $1 billion in power revenues and produce enough electricity to serve 3.5 million homes. So this is the Bureau of Reclamation. Now we know, right? Keeping up with Congress. I am Tamara Johnson Shealy. I'm coming over to the clubhouse space in 9 minutes. 9 minutes. Let's see if we can get some of these Senate bills heard today. I apologize again. The neighbors are doing the lawn in the middle of our broadcast. Senate Bill 556. Senate Bill 556 is Resources for Victims of Gun Violence Act of 2021. I told you again, we see gun legislation is one of the top issues that we see. Again, abortion, veterans, immigration, national security, gun legislation, and streamlining the processes. So here's some gun legislation. Senate Bill 556, Resources for Victims of Gun Violence Act of 2021. This is Senator Casey, Robert P. Casey, Democrat out of Pennsylvania. It says this bill establishes the Advisory Council to support victims of gun violence. Among other things, the Advisory Council must assess the needs of victims of gun violence and disseminate information about helpful resources. So this is Senate Bill 556. Senate Bill 557 is the Native Plant Species Pilot Program Act of 2021. This is Senator Susan Collins, Republican out of Maine. The Native Plant Species Pilot Program Act of 2021. It says this bill establishes a pilot program for native plant species and a study of the cost effectiveness of using native plant materials to carry out land management activities on federal land. So this is Senate Bill 557. This is Susan Collins, Republican out of Maine. Yes, we are going to know the players and we are going to know the game. We got to keep up with Congress, y'all. We got to keep up with Congress. Senate Bill 558. Senate Bill 558 is the Floods Act. The Floods Act. This is Senator Roger Wicker, Republican, Mississippi. The Floods Act. So it says this bill addresses forecasting and the communication of flood, tornado, and hurricane events by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So this is Senate Bill 558. I'll be over to the clubhouse space in about 7 minutes. Senate Bill 559. Senate Bill 559 is a bill to amend the Grand Ronde Reservation Act and for other purposes. This is Senator Merkley. We see a lot from Senator Merkley, Democrat out of Oregon. Says this bill revises the land claims of the Confederate tribes of the Grand Ronde community of Oregon. It says in particular, the bill specifies that only the tribe's claim to the 84 acres of land known as the Thompson Strip, rather than the tribe's claim to any lands within Oregon, are extinguished. So this is Senator Merkley, Jeff Merkley, Democrat out of Oregon. Senate Bill 560. Senate Bill 560 is the Oral Health for Moms Act. Oral Health for Moms Act. Senator Stabenow, Debbie Stabenow, Democrat, Michigan. It says this bill expands access to oral health during pregnancy and the postpartum period. It says specifically Medicaid, the Children's Health Insurance Program, which is CHIP, and the health insurance plans in the individual and small group markets must provide coverage for oral health services for pregnant and postpartum individuals. So this is Senator Stabenow, Debbie Stabenow, Democrat out of Michigan. Senate Bill 561. Senate Bill 561 is the FAIR Act. This is Senator Brian Schultz, Democrat out of Hawaii. It says this bill modifies pay rates for federal employees in 2022. They're about to get a raise, y'all. Federal employees, according to Senator Schultz. It says specifically the bill increases rates under the statutory pay system and for prevailing rate employees by 2.2% and increases locality pay by 1%. So this is the FAIR Act. Senator Schultz, Brian Schultz, Democrat out of Hawaii. Just a few more, and I'm coming over to the clubhouse space. Thank you, YouTube family. Just a few more. Senate Bill 562. Senate Bill 562 is Ensuring Timely Access to Generics Act of 2021. This is Senator Jeanne Shaheen, Democrat out of New Hampshire. It says this bill imposes requirements related to third-party petitions concerning an application for Food and Drug Administration approval to market a generic drug or biosimilar. So this is Senator Shaheen, Ensuring Timely Access to Generics Act of 2021. Senate Bill 563 is the Fair Access to Banking Act. Fair Access to Banking Act. When I saw this, I was like, wow, Republicans are now wanting to make sure that we all have fair access to banking. This was what I was thinking when I was diving into this one. Senator Kramer, Kevin Kramer, Republican out of North Dakota. I was reading it. I'm like, wow, they're really about to address the fairness in banking for all of us. So here's what it says. It says this bill restricts certain banks, credit unions, and payment card networks from refusing to do business with a person who is in compliance with the law. It says restrictions include prohibiting the use of certain lending programs, initiating the process of terminating an institution's depository insurance, and instituting specified civil penalties. I was still excited, y'all, when I saw this bill. I'm like, okay, they're about to do something for all of us. And I went to the press release. And here it goes. This is Senator Tills, one of the co-sponsors. It says financial services providers should never be allowed to ban law-abiding businesses just because they think it's politically expedient. Oh, that's when it went south for me. It said this legislation is an important step in preventing discrimination and protecting fair access to financial services. This is Senator Daines, another co-sponsor. It says banks should not get into the cancel culture business by refusing their services to companies or individuals they may disagree with, whether on Second Amendment rights or their stance on abortion. So this ain't really about us. This is them fighting. It says banking shouldn't be a red versus blue battleground. It says law-abiding Americans should have access to financial services regardless of political position. The Fair Access to Banking Act would ensure that banks rely on impartial risk assessments rather than politicized discrimination when providing their services. It says if banks want to become advocacy groups that ignore the constitutional protections of their clients, they will be breaking the law. That's Senator Kennedy. I thought this was a little more grounded in everyday people, and it does not seem to be that way at all. Senate Bill 563. Senate Bill 564, just one more after this one. Senate Bill 564 is the Ban Conflicted Trading Act. Ban Conflicted Trading Act. This is Senator Merkley, Jeff Merkley, Democrat out of Oregon. It says this bill prohibits a member of Congress or certain congressional officers or employees from 1, purchasing or selling specified investments, 2, entering into a transaction that creates a net short position in a security, or 3, serving as an officer or member of any board of any for-profit entity. So I wanted to go into this press release too, y'all. I'm like, okay, what is he saying? We need to end the era in which members of Congress buy and sell individual stocks for personal gain. Yep. This practice is deeply corrupt, says Merkley. First, it biases the viewpoint of members when working on legislation related to a stock they own. It says second, members trade on information they hear that the general public doesn't. And that's just wrong. Let's bring some integrity to Congress and end the trading in individual stocks. Yep. It says this quote says, there is an unavoidable potential conflict of interest when members of Congress and their top staffers trade in stocks while making decisions affecting the value of those stocks. It says our legislation will eliminate even the possibility of these conflicts of interest and ensure public servants put their constituents first by banning members and their senior aides from trading individual stocks. I agree. And that's what got Kelly Loeffler in trouble here in Georgia, because she had some inside information. That's Senate Bill 564. Senator Jeff Merkley, Democrat out of Oregon. All right, we're at the half hour. I have one more, Senate Bill 565. Senate Bill 565 is the Mark Takaya Atomic Veterans Healthcare Parity Act of 2021. This is Senator Smith, Tina Smith, Democrat out of Minnesota. It says this bill includes veterans who participated in the cleanup of any Wetak atoll. This is some island in the Marshall Islands between January 1 1977 and December 31, 1980, as radiation exposed veterans for purposes of the Department of Veteran Affairs presumption of service connection for specified cancer. So those that participated in this cleanup were exposed to radiation, and they're trying to make this right. This is Senate Bill 565, Senate Bill 565. Senator Tina Smith, Democrat out of Minnesota. And I am Tamara Johnson Shealy. I thank you. I thank you for joining me on Keeping Up with Congress. I come to you again Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right here on YouTube, right here in the Clubhouse space. I'm going to come over to Clubhouse and we're going to chop it up. We can do some Q&A. We can talk. But I thank you. You know, today, Thursdays are my Fridays. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me. I will see you on this coming Saturday. Of course, I do my Saturday broadcast at 11 a.m. Come follow me, Clubhouse family, on YouTube so you can catch me on Saturdays. This Saturday, we're going to dive into food and farming and how important our ecosystem is to make sure that we are able to survive, y'all. Like, we got to be mindful that we got to get this right. Again, food, air, water, and land, there's no compromise. We got to get it right. So I will see you back here on Monday for Keeping Up with Congress, y'all. Have a great weekend. Thank you for tuning in for Keeping Up with Congress. I am Tamara Johnson Shealy, your candidate for the United States Senate. I'm a progressive Democrat that believes that reparations will make America great. It is time that we bridge the divide in this country. Please go to the website. That's tamara4georgia.com. www.tamara, Tamara4, Georgia spelled out.com. Please join me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time